I didn't know. I knew I was talking about something that was important, that was around the edges. I had no idea that I was setting off a powder keg. I had no idea the scope and the intensity that, that this would bring.
Last year, an anonymous officer known only as Colonel Ned Stark rocked the Air Force with his columns, arguing that the way the service chooses its leaders has gone terribly wrong. And now, Ned Stark has revealed himself. He's Colonel Jason Lamb, a career intelligence officer at Air Education and Training Command, and he sat down with Air Force Times for his first ever videotaped interview. So you are Colonel Ned Stark.
Yes.
For the last year, you've been writing articles in War on the Rocks and Air Force Times about your concerns about the Air Force's officer development and promotion process. Tell us how you got here.
I reached a point as a sitting group commander, just watching what was happening with the promotion system and how we were promoting and how we were selecting folks, and came away with the conclusion that while this was okay, there were some issues with it, and I really felt like we could do better. Talking with some of my peers, it was kind of clear that I wasn't the only one who felt this way, but everybody else I was talking with kind of felt powerless. This is the system we have. What are we going to do? So I was sitting there thinking about it, and it occurred to me, I'm going to write an article. My friends were pretty evenly divided. My friends said, don't publish this at all. You're a sitting group commander. There's no way you should do this. And then there were the other folks who said, this is really important. We think you should do this, but you cannot do this under your true name.
So why Ned Stark?
So it didn't start off as Ned Stark. I actually was suffering from some delusions of grandeur and referenced back to some key historical figures, but it was pointed out to me by one of my friends that I was an uber nerd and that nobody would know who those people were. But he knew we're both Game of Thrones fans, and he's like, since you're going to end up losing your head over this, you might as well go with Ned Stark.
So you're an Air Force colonel who is a sitting group commander talking about all these things that have only been whispered about. What did you expect would happen, and what actually did happen?
So I had no idea what would happen. Most of the lines in Vegas, if my friends had anything to say with it, described my career demise within a week or two.
But Lamb's career didn't end. Instead, Ned Stark's arguments went viral, sparked hard conversations across the Air Force, and even reached the upper echelons of the Pentagon. People as far up as the Chief of Staff of the Air Force began to hear what he had to say.
Not everything with the system is bad. It does promote some really great officers, but unfortunately we promote, I think, more than we need to, folks who don't need to be promoted to that next level. What's disappointing to me is the lack of accountability for what our promotion system has produced. The system really has lent itself towards identifying way too early the folks that are going to be our lieutenant colonels, colonels, and generals, just because it's in a very aggressive timeline.
One of Lamb's key arguments is that the Air Force fast tracks promising young officers for early promotion and command, but if they later prove flawed, they don't get removed. At the same time, late blooming officers who could develop into good leaders never get the chance.
So when someone, for example, as a captain who's an executive officer or an aide to a general officer, gets a tremendous ranking, a stratification, and that person, as a very junior company grade officer, receives extra consideration for job placement, and they're placed in positions of higher responsibility than their peers, and everybody knows who receives one of these officers. Oh, this is someone on the fast track. This was General so-and-so's exec or aide. So there's a real hesitance in the system to look at that person objectively.
And what happens when someone like that, they make mistakes, or they tank the morale of a unit or do other things that might otherwise end the career of someone else.
Sure. They become, instead of career ending, they become teachable moments.
So what do you think the Air Force can do to try to get at some of the issues that you started talking about?
The system, as we talked about, any system can be gamed. It's more important to fix the culture and have a culture that is intolerant of toxic individuals or people who've been promoted beyond their competency levels and their capability.
With his possible retirement looming, Lamb hopes the Air Force will continue having these hard conversations and take the bold steps needed to grow the next generation of leaders. As far as his own future, he doesn't have any regrets about sticking his neck out to improve the service he loves.
I think I've accomplished all that I can accomplish as Ned Stark, and it's time to close out that chapter. There's only so much you can do as someone anonymous, publishing and working through email. Now's a time when I'm ready to engage as a person to person, and help where I can.
And what do you think is going to happen tomorrow and the day after you reveal who you are?
You know, my failure to accurately predict what was going to happen after the first article, I'm not going to try and guess what's going to happen. I really don't think there are going to be negative consequences, though. And in terms of, you know, the future or jobs or those kinds of things, I'm not sure I would want to work for somebody who had an issue with what I wrote. Because I'm a candid individual. Anybody I've worked with my entire career will tell you I'm extremely candid. So they don't want me to work for them anyway, because I'm going to give them the truth and my very best.